Sports Timeout Podcast with Jensen Maydew, Tony Caranco, and your host, Wes Underwood.
And we welcome into the Footy Forum, and that's brought to you by the Corner Kick in Neosho. Be sure to stop by the Corner Kick, located at 1411 Blue Oak Lane, Suite C, Neosho, Missouri. The largest soccer store in southwest Missouri, northwest Arkansas, southeastern Kansas, and northeastern Oklahoma. Check them out Tuesday through Sunday for your football needs. And, first up on our docket, we'll talk soccer missions trip with Coach Speck, Jonathon Roberts of the Carthage YMCA, and Greg Walker, pastor at Refuge Community Church. And, welcome in, fellas, and we'll go ahead and talk about how this trip kind of came about and how you guys got this particular group together.
Thanks for having us.
That's to you, Greg.
I'll take over. So I'm a pastor locally in the community, but I also work with a sports missions agency called the International Sports Federation, and we utilize all sports to bring the gospel all over the world. And so, I believe this year we had 25 or 30 different teams, playing pickleball, basketball, soccer, golf, hockey. We do multi-sport camps, and we had a great opportunity to partner with some great friends of mine that I've known for about 15 years in Tanzania, and run a soccer clinic. And so that's what we did. We recruited 6 soccer coaches and 6 Bible teachers, and went over, and we simultaneously ran soccer clinics all day long and Bible clinics all day long, and the participants just rotated through, and it was a blast.
It's awesome. And so, next question, you speak of all those sports. Why soccer for you guys? And excuse me, how were you able to kind of use that as a tool for connection to the community, especially with the language barriers that are there?
Yeah, so soccer was the sport they requested. So obviously in Tanzania, soccer is the main sport. They do have a couple others. They play basketball, netball, as well as a couple other sports, but soccer is the main thing. And so we don't ever invent a trip to go on. So we never look at a map and all of a sudden just say, we're going to go to Angola and do a sport. We respond to field requests. So they reached out to us and said, man, we would love to host a soccer clinic. Do you think you could bring a team to do that? And so this process for me started about a year ago, when they reached out, and I took it to our leadership team. We decided to take on the project. And so the next thing for me then was putting kind of some foundational work to it, recruiting team members, and ultimately taking the team over. So that's how soccer came about. They requested it. So then immediately what I do is I start looking for quality soccer coaches. Sometimes you get better soccer coaches than others. You guys see Coach Speck in here, but we also have guys like Jonathon. I'm just joking, Jonathon. He was a huge blessing. But we go out and we try and blow them away. So the community we went to, the only time they've seen corner flags on a field and some of the other, even just field prep things we did would be on television.
Wow.
They, a lot of these kids have maybe a pair of flip flops, but that's it. So they've never even played soccer with cleats on. And so we go over and we try and blow them away in everything we do to bring a level of kind of professionalism to it, to get the community excited. And so we started by just looking at taking on 10 to 14-year-old kids. And those groups filled up so quickly, the men in the community started requesting that we put on a clinic for them. So before we knew it, we had 4 sessions completely filled, which basically took our coaches and put us on the field from before 9 a.m. until about 5:30 p.m.
Wow.
With very short breaks, all day long, in the heat coaching. We had 4 full sessions to the point where we actually weren't even able to take some of the people that wanted to participate. As far as the translation, it was really cool. So some of the people understand a little bit better English than others, irregardless of whether they understood English at all or not. English would likely be a third language for anyone that did understand English. So they would first and foremost speak their tribal language, then they would speak the national language of Swahili, and then English would be if they're receiving a little bit better education. English would be a third language for them.
Wow.
So we did utilize translators. We had three different fields we worked on, two coaches on each field, and each field had between two and probably five translators at all times.
Mhm.
And so the translator works just like you think it would. We're out there screaming and yelling and encouraging and coaching. And, after every sentence, you pause and they translate. And we did have really good translators. So that really helped.
Fair enough. Is it better than the translations of our throwing it old school here back in the day when we played silent football and we had to translate that?
Probably, yes. Yes.
But man, so next up, what are some things, and any of you guys can answer on this one and take your time, whatever you need to do, but some things that stood out from the trip.
Yeah, I think what Greg touched on there, the translators are the real heroes for us guys as coaches. Well, you want to talk about, I mean, most of us that have coached in the area have worked somewhat with translators in that Spanish is such a dominant language in the world of soccer and football that um, usually you'll have a couple players that'll help out if you're struggling a little bit and take some leadership and translate in Spanish, or maybe a parent's helping or something. This was that on an infinite level. Our translators were kind of getting some instruction from Pastor John when we were there. And so the first 10, 15 minutes, we were kind of flying solo. And that was the roughest 10 to 15 minutes of the entire week. Trying to explain things and just, yeah, it was rough. And so they were a massive blessing. The other big part of it was that they weren't just translators. They were football lovers. They were soccer players. They were soccer coaches, and they loved the game. And so that was a neat thing. I felt like the coaches there took away as much as the players did, and that will allow it to continue and the development to continue. I've gotten several messages since I've got back from people in the village that are like, "Hey, I'm seeing the kids do this and do that, and you guys had a real lasting effect and stuff," and that's awesome. Um, the thing I think to remember is that it never ceases to amaze me how we show up and speak English, and maybe the majority are speaking Swahili or the tribal language, but we all speak football all the way across the world. And so if you just get in and play and show, um, once the game starts, especially in a scrimmage or something, it doesn't matter if we're speaking the same language. We all are speaking the language of soccer. And so it's a couple of us got to, we don't have Isaac and Noah. There were two of our younger coaches that went. And then Jake on tonight. He's on vacation, well watching up in Boston or something. But um, it was a really, really cool experience. The first full day we were there, we jumped in a game with them against a neighboring village
Oh, wow.
and played it at sunset. And it was a memory that will stick with me forever because we didn't know them well at that point. They told us we could play, and then we all just started playing, and it was, yeah, it was surreal. Um, the other thing as a coach that sticks out to me is Greg was a little bit underwhelming on that delivery of how many hours his coaches put in. We were supposed to start at 9 in the morning, but we got down there at like 7:30 in the morning the first day, and there's 100, 200 kids there singing and dancing and excited. So training started early and earlier and earlier. It seemed like every day. But that is so refreshing because here we deal with, is everybody from the team going to show up at training today? How do I plan my training session based off what numbers will I have and who's committed and who's prioritizing soccer over, everything else they've got going on in life? And how will I plan my session? It was not like that down there. I mean, like Greg said, after hours and hours in the sun, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday morning, the last day of the clinic, we showed up. Everybody was there before us again. And they were excited to learn and enjoying it. And probably the best part about it was on the last day, I think groups were arguing over who got to go to Sunday school first instead of who got to go to soccer first. and that's the ultimate impact we wanted to have. So hats off to the other 6 from our group that led the ministry of the mission.
It's awesome. Jonathan, anything on your end?
First of all, God bless America. Like, I had a good idea of what we were going to walk into. There were a couple of surprises along the way. Breaking my wrist on the second day was probably the biggest surprise that put me in a world of hurt. But when you see what other people have versus what we have access to here, it's very humbling. It also should bring a profound appreciation and how lucky that we were to be born in a certain place as a certain sex or race and all those things. The privileges that we have, being Americans, is huge, and it showed very clearly with the poverty levels of the areas that we were in, the conditions of the roads. But what was amazing specifically about the village was the heart, the love, the passion, the appreciation for everything. Like I never once saw a kid complain about rice and beans or the color of their soccer cleats that they were given or having to play in the heat or sharing a water bottle. I mean, all these things. Some kids would only play with one shoe. That was their striking foot, but they were getting blisters because they didn't have socks or, or maybe they let their brother borrow their shoes. I saw Sam take the shoes off of his feet in the middle of a session to give to a kid because he didn't have them. So that stuff was very, very, it hit deep. And it was appreciated to see that, and it kind of humbles you and resets you in your faith and where you are. But probably the most amazing thing, other than the views and the kids and the awesome foster parents and everything, was when we found out how they created the soccer field that we were needing to be able to do the clinic.
Yeah, I
And
heard about that.
they announced that it was 50 women in the village that spent multiple months, multiple hours per day moving this ground by basket. It was incredible. And what was crazy is, and I'm not going to lie, like we got down there, these are not the field conditions that you are used to at the U.S., but very much loved. As a matter of fact, at one point during practice, there was a centipede that was about this long and about that big around that just comes out of a hole and starts falling down the goal.
Wes, we're talking Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it was huge, man. And we're just playing around. We're using it as a cone. Like,
I mean, your
I was-
Hakuna
I
Matata
was-
moment, right?
I was good until it kicked the ball, and I was like,
Yeah.
"What?"
it turned out he was the top pick of the first match,
Wow.
But so hearing about those women doing that, seeing the culture, knowing that it is a male dominant culture, to acknowledge that work that those women had done during one of the games. But what was the craziest thing is when we are done and we're leaving for the airport at 7 a.m. in the morning, those ladies were out there working on the field more. And I'm like, I thought this was over. So you just see things like that, and it just blows your mind away when we get aggravated or become impatient here or are used to ordering anything we want from Amazon. It just really puts you in a place where you appreciate what other people do in this world, the struggles that other people have, and it also enlightens you on ways that you can impact people differently. So, those were my biggest takeaways. Unfortunately, since I did get hurt before the clinic started, Sam was my partner in crime, and I ended up being a glorified photo taker for a couple of days. I kind of worked through my injuries and things, but I did get an opportunity. Sam's a wonderful coach, unbelievable coach. I had not met him before the trip, but I was blown away by his passion, wanting to do it very well, his details. But what he did struggle was on coaching players that had less skill level, that had less experience. Well, I work for the Y, so that was right in my wheelhouse. So it was nice to let Sam take a break for a couple hours and let me take on the age group on Wednesday that was a little less experienced in soccer, and show him some ways to do that, because I learned a lot from him on ways to advance the skills that I did not know. And sometimes we just have to be reminded that not everybody knows how to run and kick yet, right?
Sure.
So,
For sure.
yeah.
Jonathan came through. He's my MVP. Yeah.
Well, we all were a great team. We all got along really well. The six of us that were the soccer group, we spent a lot of time together, so we really got a lot of time to bond. And if the opportunity ever presents itself again, that we can go visit sometime in the future, I think it would be awesome to see who remembers who and what's still going on and what other things can happen to continue to make sure that they're as successful as they want to be.
Yeah.
But it
And,
definitely wasn't Missouri.
Yeah. Go on top of that. Anything you guys plan to apply from what you learned on this trip to your life back here?
Yeah, to double down on what Jonathan said, perspective. We've still been, it's kind of neat, Greg put all of us together, and that was a neat thing. We got to go to the Serengeti, and we had a sit-down meal, and we all spoke about things we were grateful for in the trip. But then Greg went around the table and kind of pointed out some traits he really appreciated in each of us, and it was really neat. Greg's an awesome leader and facilitator of teams. He's not much older than me, but much wiser. I've learned a lot from spending some time with Greg. Another hats off to Greg on this, from one parent to another parent. Drew, Greg's son, is mini Greg, the epitome of maturity at his age. I mean, absolutely good decisions, and leading by example and in the right way. I think when we talked about what we were thankful for, Drew said he was thankful that everyone showed up with a good attitude every day. And I thought, what teenager would say something like that? So yeah, Craig and his wife have done a phenomenal job, and should be very proud of him. It was an honor to get to work with him. It was cool to see Noah and Isaac's development. It was their first time coaching, 18, 19, I think, something right around there. Younger guys that went on the trip. They did a good job and learned a lot. But yeah, I think the thing that I came back with was what I was touching on there was that Greg started a group message for all of us, and we're still using it, which has been neat since we got back. And yeah, I think it kind of brings things into perspective. Things that maybe were really high on your priority list. Like coaching is super high on my priority list, and I've noticed a change in myself since I got back. I want to be more effective as a coach, not just in developing soccer, but in developing character. I've always focused on that, but I feel right now I want to hyper focus on that, and really make more of an impactful difference on the kids that I come into contact with. It's not always about chasing a scholarship or going pro. It's about all the other things. And the kids in Mwanza, in Mavuno Village, had a massive impact on me in that retrospect.
It's awesome.
Yeah, one of the
Anyone else?
crazy things, just to add on to what you said a little bit, Sam, one of the crazy things, and this happens a lot in our sports world too with different sports, but the older men in Tanzania don't play soccer anymore. Once you get to about 35 in Tanzania, your kind of like sport days are pretty much done, and they don't have like a golf that kind of saves us old guys here in the States. But so once you get to about 35, you're done.
You're a
And
picky
so,
driver. That's the
what do
whole
you say?
excitement. I said they're a picky driver. That's like
Yeah,
equivalent
yeah,
to NASCAR for us.
yeah.
Maybe a destructive derby.
So, the crazy thing is that all these young kids when they're young, they just run out onto the field and play soccer. They're not used to any formal training. So a lot of them have a lot of skill, but they can't do some of the basics. Like literally, they can go play the game on a team, but you want to have them dribble around some cones. There's some problems there.
Oh, Greg, I
Um,
got one better than that. Have them do a throw in.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that was a day,
Like, there
man.
wasn't even somebody you could use as an example to show them
yeah.
how to do a throw in.
But when they stop playing, they've got to have something else to look forward to. And if all we've done as coaches is teach them how to be successful at a sport, then we've kind of misused our ability to lead them as young people. And so one of the things I always try to do when I coach is like, listen, we're gonna learn this game, but like there's so many things that we can learn that aren't necessarily directly related to this game that are gonna make you a lot better at this game. And so one of the things that I did with every single group I had, but especially we had a group of, I told you we had a group of men ages 17 to 27 that wanted to be part of the session that did. And the very first day, this is like the opposite of what you normally do as coaching. You don't want to just exhaust people before they go do skill work. Like you want them to come out fresh. But I like ran them to death for 30 minutes. And these guys were looking at me like, well, are we going to touch a ball? And then like we just started the whole week. I just had a 5 minute sit down with them, and I just said, guys, I just needed to know like who was going to quit and who wasn't going to quit. I needed to know that like in this tournament we're going to play on Friday. Like if you're on are you going to like go and not stop, or are you going to get tired and fizzle out? And like all of a sudden, like their whole like everyone's eyes just glued. Like they were just like, oh. And it's like, man, that's like a life lesson,
Yeah.
like more than just soccer. But man, it absolutely moves over onto the pitch. But so just teaching them, like, man, listen, there's so much more to this thing than you going and scoring some goals. Like there's so much. Don't get me wrong. We want you to love this sport. Like we want to help you get better at this. But like if we leave and all we did was help them be better soccer players, oh, okay. I mean, that's not going to transform their village. They're going to be better soccer players. We can teach them how to be better people that are committed to doing the right thing, and that includes doing the right thing on the field. Then we've probably made a bigger impact. And so that's just one of the things that I always try and think of, is thinking through like how does this reach even beyond the sport? But when you go in somewhere, they say that friendship is born when one person looks at another and says, "Oh, you too." And like, man, that's the beautiful thing about sports. Like, man, we don't, I mean, I knew a lot of people just because I've been going to this place for 15 years, but like Sam, Jonathan, man, they didn't know any of these people. But like, man, they showed up with some soccer balls. And the fact that they were just on a field with soccer balls, friendship was born, and it didn't even matter if something needed to be translated. There was a common language being spoke and a respect that's given, and it's like, oh, all right, let's go. And that's the crazy thing that sports can do. When you think about it from like a missions perspective, because obviously that was an important part of this trip, sports can get you into almost any country in the world with the gospel. Whereas
Yeah.
so many countries are resistant to the gospel these days. We've sent teams to closed countries this year in the name of sport and seen a tremendous work for the kingdom be done, because people found a commonality in the sport that was being played. And so soccer was the tool, to help. Yeah, let's make them better soccer players, but also like let's teach them about some things that are a lot more important. And on the good side for us, one of the impactful things for me was that almost half of the 267 participants, um, you know, were really serious about saying like, no, like I get that this was more about soccer and I want to learn more. And I thought that was a really cool moment.
It's awesome.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah, one last thing to touch on. I thought this was really neat.
Yeah.
Was the first day right before the clinic started. Miss Bethany, was it Miss Bethany or Miss Casey? They're both phenomenal.
Well, they both
and
took me to the hospital the night before. So who knows?
They do so much in the village. They are sort of semi-permanent missionaries that have stayed for a long time. I think Casey actually just got sent on another mission. But one of them came and was kind of scurrying to get all of our passports right before the first training session started. And we're like, what's going on? And she said, well, there's so many people here because of the 300 people that were in the clinic, only 50 were from Mavuno Village. So 250 are from surrounding villages, could be several miles that walk to come to the clinic. There were so many people that some government officials had shown up and needed us to show our passports because there was such a large gathering happening. And I thought, wow, that's a cool impact that this project has put together. It was pretty surreal, I thought.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting, a lot of times we like to take the context we live in and apply them cross-culturally. So, like we're kind of located in Southwest Missouri area here. And so we like to take like the cities we live in, so that they went and ran a, soccer and a Bible clinic, and that's not the case here. So we're talking the bush of Africa, no clean water, no electricity, go on National Geographic website and just type in Africa, and they're going to pull up something that looks like so remote. Like that's what we're talking. We're talking people living in huts. And so, to have the, 300 people, involved in clinics and people helping, you're talking like kids walked miles to be there. And that's so significant in this community where so many of our youth, I don't know if they'd walk a mile to go to practice.
Yeah.
But these kids will walk miles just to get to this clinic, 2 hours early, and then they'll stay late. And it's about being passionate about the opportunity that's before you. And for these boys and girls, man, they looked at it and they were like, I literally can't wait to be a part of what's about to happen. And so our coaches did a great job. But when you think about it, think a little bit different outside of the context of maybe where you live, and think like, no, I'm actually talking about a place where like soccer fields really, as I see them, don't exist. Buildings as I see them don't exist. Homes as I see them don't exist like that. Nothing looks like what you're used to seeing.
Sure.
Us 6 coaches will not be complaining about any field conditions again.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, appreciate you guys taking your time out of your week, and sounds like a great trip, and glad everything went well. You all made it back, and thanks for telling your story. Have a good one. Take care.
Yeah, 100%. If anyone's ever interested, in the sports trips we do, it's pretty cool stuff. And if you look up sports with an S, missions with an S, sportsmissions.com, you can get a decent overview of kind of like the different sports. And so, if that's something you're interested in, check out the website and at least get some basic information. But yeah, it was great, and definitely appreciate you having us on, Wes.
Yeah, no problem. Guys,
Thanks, Wes.
Yeah.
And thank you, Greg, for picking us to represent the organization and go with you on this trip. And Wes, thanks for covering us today. And Sam, thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Anytime. Take care.
See you guys.
You guys.
And really appreciate them for doing that. Now we move into the next part of this podcast. And since we're in the Footy Forum, we'll go ahead and we'll talk Sporting Kansas City and the Current. We'll start off with the Current, and I'll throw it in here to Team Heartland. Sam and I will be on the pitch this Saturday at CPKC in Kansas City for the Teal Rising Cup, and that's presented by the Visit Missouri this summer at CPKC Stadium. And man, it's going to be fun. I mean, they've got 4 teams coming in. You've got Kansas City Current, and then you have the Chicago Stars, Corinthians SC, and Palmaris. And it's just going to be fun. Match 1 begins at 4:30 p.m. Central. That will be Chicago Stars versus Corinthians SC. And then match number 2 will begin at 8 p.m. with a, halftime show with Sam and I being in it, as we kind of touched on. But, it's going to be fun to see, fun to watch, and Team Heartland's going to kick some booty out there for sure. Take a look at this little teaser real quick.
Redeem when the king bleed, bring a victory, enemies flee easily, bringing the devil into his knees, weak keys beats to be complete, they go to gate keys. God is with us, so we gotta fear, God is enough, how give up on it, gotta fear, God will trust us, what comes out, don't gotta fear, why you ain't gotta fear, I know my God is here. God is with us, so we gotta fear, God is enough, how give up on it, gotta fear, God will trust us. done.
One, two, three.
Team Harlan.
Yep, Ellie Wheeler last year telling me that maybe a chance. I don't know. This year I've got Sam, so I feel a little bit better. We could go back and forth between each other, knowing each other. But never know. Never know. Tuesday, July 15th, they will play the second round at CPKC Stadium with match 3 beginning at 5 p.m. That will be the match 1 loser versus the match 2 loser. And then the championship match at 8 p.m., which will be the match 1 winner versus the match 2 winner. So head on out there, check that out. Come see some fun halftime stuff going on. And yeah, it should be a lot of fun. Really, really should be. I mean, excited for it. Current are having fun right now. So should the fans. Okay? So should the fans. Next up, we talk the resurgent Sporting Kansas City, and they're going to welcome this Saturday as well the Seattle Sounders. And in the middle of the Major League Soccer season, some of the matches just kind of given some things going on, but Sporting Kansas City seems to be resurging at the right time, and they're going to host a challenge in the Seattle Sounders. I mean, this match, let's go to the history here. It's insane over the last 5 games between these two. And excuse me, pardon me there. So going back to October 2nd of 22, Sporting Kansas City pulled that one out 1-0 over the Sounders. And then March 25th of 23, the Sounders just won in a dominating win 4-1 over Sporting. And then Sporting Kansas City came back on May 7th and defeated them 2-1. And then the June 8th match of 2024, the Sounders lost to Sporting Kansas City 2-1. And then Sounders came back and beat them 2-0. So it's always been within 1 to 2 points. There was that 3-point gap there as the Sounders, but I mean the Current just dominating in their last 5 Sporting just dominating in their last 5 matches, as they did lose to LAFC and then they did lose to FC Dallas, but then they won 2-1 against Charlotte FC. Regained some ground there, gained those big 3 points. Then they gained a point against Real Salt Lake and ended up earning a draw there. And then against Colorado Rapids on the 4th of July, a 4th of July miracle, Sporting Kansas City pulled out at home a 2-1 victory there. Sounders come in at 8-6-6. They have 30 points. And Sporting Kansas City comes in at 6-5-10 with 23 points. Oh, Sounders are sitting in the 5th spot currently. They are 9 points out of first place. And Kansas City, ironically enough, just sits 7 points behind the Sounders. And the Sounders, they're on a bit of a losing streak right now. Not a losing streak, but they have lost 3 of their last 5. And they have won their last 2 games technically with a draw and a win. They drew against the Crew on July 6th, and then they won against Austin FC on June 28th. And like I said, these are games that are usually just toe-to-toe the entire time, and it's pretty fun to watch. I mean, if you like strategic games, this game is going to be for you. But Sporting Kansas City has looked really good. Yes, 4 points earned in the last 2 games for the Sounders. And then for Kansas City, I mean, also 4 points earned. This could be fun. This could be really fun to see. This could be fun to watch. Really excited for this matchup going on in Kansas City. I'll be playing in the halftime media game during this, but yeah. So, well, that's it for this time. We appreciate you guys coming on this special edition of the Footy Forum, and man, looking forward to starting the podcast up again in a couple weeks. Get things going. Football edition's going to be talking a lot of football. Football starting up on July 31st for the NFL. Football camps just started up in the area for, the 4 states down here in Joplin, Webb, Carl, and all that. So Carthage, Neosho. Everybody's starting up in their trainings, getting out and getting in the heat, getting used to the weather and getting conditions. So that'll do it for this time on the Sports Timeout podcast. Catch you next time.